In today's video, I'm going to bring you along as I transition my front living room from winter to spring. I grew up hearing tales of how every summer they would roll up the oriental rug and get out the Belgian linen slipcovers. It was always Belgian linen slipcovers, kind of like it was all one word. I'm not sure what they put on the floor, but they definitely had a look for the warmer months and a look for the cooler months. Now, that was in Dallas, where summer was a really big deal before the days of central air conditioning. A lot of ceiling fans and that sort of thing. But in the summertime, to survive the heat, you would go to the movies where it was air conditioned, according to my mother when she was a little girl. We are decorating our house with a springtime look. This funny little corner cabinet, straight from a garage sale in the 1980s, is really one of my favorite things to decorate. It fits perfectly behind the little love seat, and I've done several things here to make it work for spring. Last week in Grand Rapids at the Meyer Garden Butterfly exhibit, I bought this butterfly collection. I thought by buying it in a museum it would be responsibly sourced and I wouldn't be taking the lives needlessly of little butterflies. It is glass on both sides. You can see the back sides of the butterflies. So I put it in front of a mirror so that you can see. Now here's our blue morpho, our common blue morpho, and you can see behind him he has a brown backside with little eyes on it. I guess that's his camouflage. And there's the red butterfly, lower red, upper black, and he has like some iridescence on him, as does this funny little red butterfly with the black and white circles. That is his backside reflection, the black with the blue stripes on it. It's kind of interesting to see the backs of the butterflies, and I didn't want to miss that, but I also didn't want people handling it. But putting it on a mirror really did work. And I have put my little music boxes. They always look like they're dancing in the spring, and so I like to have that out for the springtime. And some other light colored pieces. My little daffodil, a critter had chewed it off, which is very unusual because daffodils must taste bad. But it was just a little broken one lying on the ground that was not open. And so I took him, put him in a little bottle of water, and he opened up. And I have changed what's on my sofa to reflect the season. And across the back, I have simply put an old piece of fabric. This is just a piece of fabric that I had made kind of a pillowcase out of, but I love it with this yellow fabric. This is a Tebow fabric that was from almost 20 years ago, and a couple of inexpensive tricks for having a variety of pillows. First of all, for my inserts, I go to the thrift store and they sell pillows that they have already fumigated, so I know they're safe, and they sell them for $2.99. And I can feel through the fabric when I've got down. These were 2 down pillow inserts. I didn't like the covers at all, so I removed those. And this fabric, which is a designer fabric from a manufacturer called Tebow, looks like Thibault, but it's Tebow, and a very high-end fabric. And what I look for is remnants, and usually those are less than 2 yards, but I got enough here think I got a little over 1.5 yards, probably for $10. And it was enough to make 2 pillows. And I had just been saving it. I like to buy remnants off of Fabric Guru because they have a lot of very high-end fabrics, European manufacturers, that type of thing. And you can find the remnants for next to nothing, and they're a wonderful way to add some fun color through pillows. And some daffodils from the yard, along with rosemary. The rosemary's blooming, and of course yellow and purple are complementary colors, so they work really well together. And above the piano, the Dresden candelabra, and a little bust of a beautiful lady. And here's my little tiny Dresden picture, and waiting for when I find a little broken flower, a tiny little broken flower in the garden, I can stick it in there and we can enjoy it. I think something pink would be very pretty. I decided to do something a little bit different with the inside of my china cabinet. It has a dark back. You can see it's this dark brown. And I had a piece of linen, really heavy linen. And as you know, linen wrinkles pretty badly. This was completely pressed, but it got wrinkled as I was putting it in. I decided, I was going to put things in front of it so it would cover it up. But my point was I wanted to lighten the background, but I don't want to paint it. And I didn't want to put like a peel and stick wallpaper. That was another thought. Another thought was to create panels with either wallpaper or paper on them on a heavy poster board or something, and then slip those in. But I thought, I've got this piece of fabric. I think I can make this work. So what I did was I put Velcro. You see, it's that 3M Velcro that I can take off, and I did have to hot glue the Velcro onto the back of the fabric, but I folded it down and I attached that. And it's very heavy fabric, but this way I can put it in there and I can take it down and make it look like it never had existed. So that was the point here. And I did have to work with my lights. And when I got to the bottom, that clump right there, that's where it comes through the wall. Now, I could have put a hole in the fabric, made it lie flat, but I knew since that's the bottom corner, I used this china cabinet as additional bookshelves. So, oh boy, it's really wrinkled down here. But I certainly can't take the iron in, or I don't want to put steam inside there. So it's just going to have to be covered up. And we'll do that in a minute. So you don't need to worry too much about that. It doesn't look real pressed, but I promise you, it was completely, beautifully pressed when I started this. That's just what happens because the shelves can't come out of the cabinet at all, and they would have to be turned on their side and slip to the bottom, and then I would have real issue with the lights that are attached to the bottom, and it was like, I'll just deal with the wrinkles and cover them up. I'll show you how I decorate this thing. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is add some books. Okay, I've added some books. Bottom left-hand side, those are biographies. Right-hand side, those are histories. The blue books on the second shelf up are little poetry books. And you see 2 books there on the shelf. Those were my grandfather's poetry books, as was this particular book, which is really interesting. If you have old family books, look through. You may find the history of your family in the book. And this one is a really interesting story, I think. As a family member, it's interesting. So there's his signature, C.A. Raspberry. And he wrote it here, and it's a little easier to read. And we can see a date on it. It's November the 13th, 89. That's 1889. And it's C.A. for Charles Arthur Raspberry, Rasberry. I want you to notice that spelling. That's in his handwriting. That's how he did it. And it's not raspberry like the fruit with a P in there, but that was how the family name was spelled. Now here's the funny story that my mother told. When he went into business, he hired a man to paint the sign for his office, and the man misspelled his name. And he wrote Rasbury. And the funny thing is, you can see Chaz A. Raspberry. This was his book. So I know this book, this Campbell book, came after the Pope book because of the spelling change. And my great-grandfather liked the way it looked. So he had his name legally changed to Raspberry, Rasbury. And when you look in the old documents, like his birth certificates and those types of things, it'll be Berry. And if you look at the older documents, like a death certificate and his business correspondence and so forth, it'll be with the URY, which is kind of fun to see. But liking poetry ran through the family. That's the three poetry books on the right, and I always have them where I can see them because they're some of my very favorite things is the poetry books. With a china cabinet, my first question is always, what china am I going to use? I thought about using the pink, but I decided this would be better. This is my china. It's a family china. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt, my sister, we all have this china. It's Lenox Autumn. And the way the china cabinet is, the top shelf holds dinner plates, and the bottom two shelves can only hold salad and dessert size. So I'm going to go ahead and put the plates in as a starting point. Here are the dishes for the dinner plates on top. There's not enough room for 5, so I could space them out evenly, or I can leave them spread apart, which is what I'm going to be doing here, to put something in the middle, and 6 plates along the bottom. I love the sparkle that crystal adds. So on the top shelf, I have added some of my great-grandmothers. This was the wife of Charles Arthur Raspberry. These were her rock crystal stem pieces. And these little stem pieces. Like I said, she liked crystal, so there was a lot of different collections. Crystal doesn't last real well, in case you've never broken any. We have all sorts of little odd numbers of things, and I'm putting those on the shelves, on the top shelf. Now, something I've learned from experience is that the shelves look a little bare, so I like to add a little greenery, and this is faux boxwood that I found a faux boxwood garland at a thrift store for next to nothing, and I cut it up. So that added a little bit more interest to that top shelf. Now I need to add something in the center, so I'm going to add the covered vegetable dish. And my grandmother Raspberry bought 3 of these for her 3 granddaughters, and I ended up with it. And the handle can be removed, and it can be 2 serving pieces, or you can have a covered with the handle on. I thought it might be a good time to put in my center pieces so I can work around them and build this. So here's what I'm going to add. Just a tray, a teapot, and a cream and sugar. Those came from my grandmother on the other side of the family. And I like keeping them in here because all of the silver does not get as tarnished when it's back behind glass. And that grandmother's figurine from the 1950s. I mentioned this before. It was made in Japan, hand painted, but so it's not a great piece. It does have a music box that still works, and there is a night light feature to it, but it does not look safe, so I've cut the wiring so nobody will accidentally plug it in and burn the house down. And I thought they looked like the picture of spring here. And for that second shelf down, I'm going to put in a silver bowl with a little bit of artificial greenery and some dried hydrangea. Just to show you a few things I'm going to put on the shelf. This will be to one side of the little courting couple. This is a hand-painted dish. I think someone in the family painted it, maybe my great-grandfather Raspberry's sister or sister-in-law or somebody. And that will be going in along with, we have a cream and sugar. My lighting's not real good on that, but these are just Decal pieces from Germany. They're labeled on the bottom, and those will go on the other side of the little couple. Now on either side of the shelf with the plates, I have a crystal cream and sugar. These actually came from a thrift store. And I have some that are very similar that belong to a different great-grandmother, but these pieces are bigger than the ones that I got from her, and so they kind of stand out on the shelf. And on the other side, I'm going to put these lead crystal. They're smaller bowls, but I thought that would be a nice complement on the other side of the shelf with the plates. I think I could use something more on that bottom shelf. Since there is a teapot on the bottom, I thought some little cups might be nice. This is the same china, so that'll kind of bring the china farther down into the cabinet. I feel like they shouldn't both be the same height. I elevated one of them with a little small silver bowl. I'll make it a little bit higher and make that a little more interesting. Came across this and I thought, that would be nice. I feel like I need a little something else on that shelf second from the top. This is a little condiment container. From the Victorian period, you turn it back and it has a little spoon inside, and that came from somebody a long time ago in the family, maybe on the raspberry side. These are my Dresden salt and peppers from Germany, and I thought those would be pretty in the cabinet. Now I've got some small pieces that I'm going to add. I think that top shelf could use a couple of small pieces on either side of the silver vegetable dish. One thing is the little Dresden basket that I'll put on one side. And the other is this sweet little Czechoslovakian pitcher. Now, this I received in pieces. My mother never wanted to throw anything away, had saved all of these pieces for years, this broken little piece. And I said, well, I'm going to glue that back together. And you can see there's even a piece missing in there. And don't put any water in it because there's a hole, it'll leak right out. But those were pieces that were lost, but I still love it. Little pieces of people with musical instruments there. And I frequently use this piece. So there they are on their shelf. Here are my little $1 bunnies from Target, the $1 bins at Target, and I thought those would be fun to add around also. One little bunny looking at the courting couple. One little bunny caught in the act of eating the kale on the little basket, and one little bunny just watching everything go by. Here's the way the whole thing turned out. So inside with the crystal and the china, a little whimsical bunny, and our little broken creamer. It's our first shelf. Our second shelf with the china. And the crystal creamer and sugar from the thrift store. And the Dresden salt and pepper shaker. And some crystal bowls. And the next shelf down, the poetry books. I think maybe I might want to add a little greenery back in there. There's our little German cream and sugar. Our courting couple with Curious Bunny. And our poetry books here. And some more books, you know. I took it off center, but it needs a little more breathing room there. And my teacups. And some other books. But I think I could use a little touch of greenery right there. I think that added a little bit of interest there. Looking around, see if I want to put any more greenery. Maybe behind that teapot. Yeah, I think that's nice behind the teapot there. And if I feel like I want some more later on, I can certainly do that, you know. Now I'm thinking, I think that's too much. What do you think? Behind the people, or yeah, I'm liking that. That sounds good. I've had questions before about the lighting that I added, and I will put something in the description about the lighting that I use, because I just bought it on Amazon. It was under counter lighting that I just added in, and it is hardwired, so I don't have to worry about changing the batteries. I will see if that has better light. There's a lot of shadows from that. It's hard to light a room well, even in the middle of the day, to photograph it well. I'm not a lighting expert, but I think you get the general idea. Now, okay, the one thing that still looks wintry is my rug. So I have my eyes open for a sisal rug, maybe a used sisal rug. Things like that show up at Salvation Army around here is the best place to look for things like that. So if I were to find one of those, I would roll up my black rug, put out the sisal, totally changing the look of my room. Thanks so much for joining me for my spring refresh in my living room. We are definitely having some spring here. I hope that things are warming up where you are and you're beginning to see the bulbs come out like we are. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.